guys, so welcome to Maintaining Environmental Flows in our fourth module, fifth module in caring for the country. I'm going to start with just navigating through our worksheet that we've got. It's pretty much the same as usual, however, I want to just tell you how to do the last bit. Where are we? Okay, so we've got our present information as a flowchart to summarize the steps in the form of sewage treatment. So this topic is basically a follow-on from the topic that we did when we looked at the water cycle and managing water in our preliminary studies. For the last dot point, what I want you to do is we can't visit the sewage treatment area, so I've got this virtual tour, and you can look for some others as well. You might be able to find other countries, but this one is one in New South Wales. This is from Sydney Water, which goes through the treatment of wastewater. Also, you can refer to your Spotlight booklet that has an image in there, and your textbook should go into some of the process. Here I've got a link to a worksheet which includes already prepared pictures for you that you can use in your flowchart, in creating your flowchart, but also there's a question here that asks you to discuss the different processes that are involved in treating sewage. So that's for your process and present information dot point. If you do want a copy of this, come and see me and I'll get one for you. But you might want to represent the pictures in a different way. As you've seen in previous HSC questions, it's really important to be able to clearly represent the steps of a flow chart if you are going to show it diagrammatically, and it does help in your answer. Okay, so keep it in mind and make sure you complete that activity. Okay, and of course we also go through sewage treatment as well throughout the work, because it is one of the dot points that we need to talk about. So what's the background to this topic? Okay, our New South Wales and Victorian governments have introduced legislations to return some of the flow of the Snowy River that had previously been diverted to the Murray River for irrigation, and I've put some pictures of that in the worksheet as well. The Macquarie Marshes are a really important wetland for a variety of organisms, including birds, fish, and aquatic invertebrates. So you can have a look, have a Google of that, and get an idea of why it's so important to manage water. Because who's using water in Sydney? We have to, even New South Wales and Victoria. Who's using water? Where is our main water sources? We are relatively a dry country. We've looked at some issues. How about agriculture? Agriculture is an important industry. And so which requires a lot of water. So as senior students, you should be thinking about, well, who controls the water in our river? Should it be controlled? You are allowed to ask these questions. And in this topic, we'll look at why water management is an important feature of our society. So how do we affect river flows? So we can affect river flows by creating dams, extracting water for irrigation, and extracting for hydroelectric schemes, including the one at the Snowy Mountains. So, introduction. Okay, so farmers need water, especially farmers in dry countries like Australia. However, there needs to be a plan in place so that as to ensure those farmers are using it efficiently. And we've talked about salinity and erosion, and how the misuse of water in agriculture can cause these huge problems. So we need to manage it appropriately, not just to prevent wasting water, but also to prevent all the other follow-on effects to the environment. Irrigation, just as a definition, is the artificial supply of water to plants and soil. It is one of the most important uses of water. About 60% of the world's fresh water is used for irrigating. Without irrigation, large-scale farming would not be possible, and would almost certainly there would be a shortage of food. Irrigation makes farming possible in places like Menindee and much of the Australian continent. However, it's not always efficient. For example, a lot of irrigation like flood irrigation methods lose large amounts of water through evaporation. Let's have a look at some forms of irrigation. Okay, we have to think about, well, what are the positives and negatives of both? So we've got overhead irrigation here and drip irrigation. We've looked at the uses, the effects on salinity, and what I've got a question for you. If you do your readings, you'll be able to answer these questions. And that just shows you the picture of what each type of irrigation is. As a summary, the positives of overhead irrigation can be that you can cover a really wide area really quickly. You can control the depth of water seeping into the ground, and there is a small effect on overland water flow. The negatives are runoff or tailwater. So excess water can carry many of the nutrients and pesticides away from the farming area. You have really large evaporation rates and land clearing. What about drip irrigation? Well, look at the major negative here. It is way more expensive to install, but the positives are that it is really, you can control how much water, you can reduce evaporation, you can reduce even salinity, increasing salinity, because there's hardly any percolation into the water table. It's used immediately by the roots of the plants that are in there. There's no runoff at all, and yep, as I said, it delivers straight to the water roots. So licenses often regulate the amount of water available to users, and means that the amount of water available to use as irrigation water can be monitored and controlled. More water must be available to flow past the properties than is used, as environmental flows are essential for the health of the river. This is currently the practice in New South Wales, and with some of the artesian bore users. A license to irrigate allows a specific amount of water to be used each year. A problem in this system can occur in very wet seasons when a full allocation is used, even though it's not required by some farmers. Okay, so it can make a big difference. However, farmers need to make that choice whether they want to save money in the short term, and a lot of other factors affected as well, depending on what they've already got in place, what they've used. But I want you to think about, well, what's your opinion about these irrigation methods? So the government, as I said, monitors usage by issuing the licenses for specific amounts of water per year. Have a think. What do you think the impact might be on the community and other farmers? Should diverting water into watercourses be taken into consideration in the allocation to farmers? What about the people who pump water from bores? Should they also be issued with a license? And it depends also what they are farming. If you have a read of the sheets, it goes into the different uses of the different uses of water, and also how much water different types of crops require. Licensing enables governments and land care groups to monitor and control the volume of water flowing in and out of the environment. So as a result, we can predict groundwater movement and depths, which, as you know, can also help to prevent salinity problems. Does this affect your community in any way? How? Do you think it's important? Why or why not? Do a quick Google search of possibly what kind of things, what kind of water issues may occur in Campbelltown.